Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Multi-Location Marketing Leader. I'm your host, Erin Martin, and this episode brought to you by Netcertive, a marketing partner who can help you run better localized marketing programs. Today, our guest is Kimbrough Taylor. He's the Executive Director of Marketing for FirstLight Home Care, a leading home care franchise with over 150 locations across the U.S. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Excited to chat with you.
Awesome. And so just to kick it off for some of our listeners, can you give us just a background about you and your role and what you do at FirstLight Home Care?
Sure. So I look at, my role at FirstLight. Technically, I lead the marketing department, all the things we do at the national, local level with our franchisees. But I really look at it as my job is to help our franchisees be successful. So I look at it in a way as I work for our franchisees, and we have a joke on our team that we have an org chart with, the folks that are on my team under, and I always joke that it should be flipped. It feels like I kind of work for all of them sometimes. So my role is, again, leading national and local strategy development for our marketing team and for our franchisees at large, just helping, bring FirstLight to more folks so that we can help more people is, the nutshell of where we are today. So yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity because I think what we do, what our franchisees do is truly amazing. So I'm just honored to play a small part in it.
Yeah. And I know that you joined a few years ago almost now. And so
Yeah.
I'm just curious, when you first jumped into the marketing role, like what was the opportunities and challenge that you saw? And then where did you kind of start with your initiatives at that point in
Sure.
time?
Sure. So I jumped in from Service Master about 18 months ago. So I led digital marketing and some strategic initiatives for the 5 Service Master brands for about 3 years. So came from, again, in that role, 2,500 franchisees to, about 130 franchisees serving 200 territories or so for us here. So much smaller in scale, which is a bigger opportunity. That means we can touch more franchisees, reach out and get involved with more. So I spent the first couple of months just learning, seeing where we were. I inherited a great team of folks on our side who had been, some of them have been working with our franchisees for 8 years in one case. So a lot of knowledge there. So I really looked at let's figure out the space. So I know franchise marketing. I know how to work with franchisees, but I didn't know home care. So one of the most important things for me was to learn from our franchisees. And so my team still jokes that I spend more time with franchisees than probably any marketing leader in a franchise system. I've got franchisees that reach out and call me all the time. And that's from those first couple of months, just spending time with them, learning their challenges, learning the industry. So really the way I look at the journey we've been on, I've said this in my team, when they listen to this and watch this, they'll roll their eyes because I say this all the time, but there's the old saying of, you can't fly the airplane while you're building it. I looked at it as this is a scenario where we need to go in and we're not even thinking airplane. We need to think about the airport. So let's go back and look at the infrastructure. Let's look at the runway. Let's look at the terminals. Let's look at all the things that enable an airplane to take off and land and really have that good start. Because that airplane's great when it's in the air, but you got to be able to land it and you got to be able to take off from somewhere. So we really looked at, again, a lot of the basic infrastructure, the partnerships that we had in place, the tools and technology that we had, and then just our overall strategy for franchisee support. How do we better help our franchisees and how do we be as efficient as we can with the time that we can spend with them so that we can get in front of as many as possible? So that's been the last 18 months for us, is really looking back at the support structure, the partners and all of that, and kind of starting from ground zero in some cases, but then also building off the great things that we had in place already in others.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, it's all about starting with that strong foundation and making sure that if you build something on top of that, the foundation isn't going to collapse. So what
That's
was
right.
that for you guys? Like, what did you identify as, this foundational piece is working, this
Sure.
isn't? Like, what were those?
So I think one thing for us, the great thing about our industry is you don't get into this space unless, you really have a passion for it from a franchisee perspective. So what's really cool for me is all of our franchisees have this just amazing story to tell. So when I think about the foundational pieces for us, these stories, they tell themselves. They're amazing. It's just about, better enabling and looking at the channels and the ways that we're telling those stories and bringing them to life. One of the biggest things, though, that we needed a new website. Our website
Mhm.
was very old. It hadn't been touched in a while. even our web developer who built it and built our new one as well. One of the first meetings I had with them was kind of like, yeah, you're probably due for a new website. And I'm like, good, I'm glad you agree because I was dreading this conversation. So we jumped in and we spent about 9 months really focused on our website and building that from the ground up. Not just, thinking about the national site itself, but also thinking about how do we better enable franchisees at the local level to pull certain levers, tell their stories, video, content, all of those good things. So that was a huge part of it. And that was one of the biggest things we identified. I think it was my third week we signed an SOW to rebuild our website because it was just going to be such a big lever for us. And that's the platform from which everything else springs. So we launched our new website in October. We just won an award that I wish I had the name of in front of me. We got second place in the home care category for website refresh and brand refresh. So it's fun if anyone out there wants to go back to the Wayback Machine and look at
Oh,
firstlighthomecare.com
yeah.
2 years ago versus today. It's a very different experience. So we just really focused again on that storytelling and how can we use these digital platforms to tell these great stories that are already in place, whether it be the franchisee stories, all these great client stories that we get back, all kinds of things like that.
Yeah, and you mentioned the franchisees having levers that they could pull as well. What did that include for location pages and the website specifically? Because I think that's one piece that a lot of marketers miss
Sure.
is the localization that needs to happen, at the SEO level with the actual
Sure.
content specifically for each Z. Like, how'd you guys handle that?
Sure. So the way I like to think about it is rather than location pages, we like to think about it as microsites. But the term microsite can be scary when you're putting that out there for a franchisee because it can feel like I've got so much stuff I've got to do. So we really focused on what are the key pages and areas that we need to have be localized. And so what we wanted to do is make sure that the homepage really felt like a local homepage. So it's their pictures, their stories, their videos, their content, their service area map, the cities and all of that, not just a big, it looks like the national homepage, but then it just says, I'm in Memphis, Tennessee. So we don't want to build a page that just looks the exact same as the national homepage, but says Memphis on it. And we
Mhm.
really wanted it to be, the franchisees telling their stories. And so what you see when you get to a local homepage is localized content right off the bat, them telling their stories. And then there's areas for them to customize so they can upload their own videos, awards, testimonials, but then they can go deeper and they can make customizations on different service pages. They can even say, hey, I don't want to show this service on my site because I don't do much of that. I want to focus on these. And so before where it was hey, I get calls all the time for this service that I don't offer. Now let's not even show that. Let's make sure we're showing truly when somebody picks up the phone and calls, what are the interactions they can expect to have with you? And not only that, who can they expect to talk to? So we've got a great section of the site that lets people spotlight the members of their team, who's going to be answering the phone, all of that good stuff. So the big focus of the site, if you go to our national site, you'll see there's not a national phone number on there. If you dig, you can find it, but we don't want people calling us at the corporate office. We want people to get in touch with their franchisees as quickly as possible. So that's been the big focus is pulling all the levers at the local level from an SEO perspective, focusing on their website, their Google My Business, their reviews to get them that visibility so that people get in touch with them quickly.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what's your approach to getting the Z's involved with that local microsite content then? Because that's the next
Sure.
big issue that I think people have.
Sure. So we have a microsite editing guide that we've put together with screenshots, walks them through exactly how to do certain things. So if they've got hey, I want to change the content on my, skilled services page, there is a content doc that they can open that goes right to that section, tells you exactly what to push, what to pull, how to do it. But we also made sure, again, one of the biggest things for us is that from an SEO perspective, we're keeping that good stuff behind the scenes. We're not, messing any of that up. So there's certain areas that they can edit and it walks them through exactly how to do that. And then there's certain things that are locked down so that they can't make changes to things that might intentionally or unintentionally hurt them. So that's really our big focus there. And then of course, folks reach out to me and my team all the time for, hey, I want to do this on the website. How can I do it? So our goal is to make it as simple as possible. A lot of time we'll jump on and just do it for them. But yeah, so there's really a self-service way, or there's the kick it over the fence to the marketing team and let them help me do it because I'm not a marketer type approach.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then the other thing I wanted to pick your brain on related to website stuff is SEO in general. I know you have a really strong background in digital and SEO. And so where do you see other franchise marketers get SEO wrong. Like, I think sometimes if you don't come with that background or have a depth of knowledge, it can be a little overwhelming. So getting back to SEO, I think that's one of those things where it can be overwhelming and people don't quite understand everything that's going on. So what's your approach in general to SEO, or where do you think people get it wrong?
Right. So my background, I began really as an SEO working for agencies and got the opportunity to work at Wunderman Thompson, one of the largest agencies in North America and the world. And so got to be around a lot of really smart folks. But when you get into the franchise space after that, one of the things you realize is, franchisees are a lot like my clients where, they've got a million other things going on in a day. They've got to be an HR administrator, an ops person, a marketer, a salesperson. They've got to do all those things. So one of the biggest things you see is that when you get into them and start talking marketing is that they get really confused quickly on what actually SEO is. And so a lot of them will look at PPC and think that that's SEO, or, the words on my page, that's my SEO. Where I really like to try to simplify it for them and say, SEO is really about the three C's of SEO. And that's something that goes back to my time at Wunderman Thompson. It's really the way we approached it. And so the three C's are content, credibility, and crawlability. So content, the words on the page, the story you're telling, the visual elements, the videos that you might have, making sure that that's optimized for search, doing your good keyword research, making sure it's structured effectively. You're not doing, some of the things that you would want to, keyword stuffing, all of that type stuff. Really just making sure you're telling the right story. Google's getting smarter. They can tell what good content is and what bad content is. A couple of years ago is how many times can I get this keyword in there and all of that stuff. It's really about really writing for humans versus writing for an algorithm now. And so
Yeah.
really trying to make sure we're telling a great story with content. Credibility, that's what people say about you. And so that's things like link building. So getting good backlinks to your website, all of that good stuff. But it's also about your reputation online. So Google My Business reviews are really important. So I always stress to my franchisees, generating new reviews, responding to those reviews, and really making sure that you're an active participant in there. And getting those reviews coming in at a regular basis, identifying opportunities where it's appropriate to ask a client for a review. You, of course, don't want to just blanket send out to every single client, leave me a review, but identifying those good interactions that can lead to a good Google review that can help your business. So that's an important one. And then crawlability. This is the thing that I don't let our franchisees even worry about, but that's just the back end of the website. Is it built well? Does it load quickly? Is it user friendly? Does it have a great UX? All of those things. So those three things kind of coming together really creates a good SEO strategy, and then it's really up to us to keep up with algorithm updates, all of that. Every time Google releases an update, it seems like the healthcare industry, of which we're technically a part, gets hit the hardest. And so looking at those fluctuations, the great thing for us, we relaunched the site, we're seeing things tick back up, and then Google releases a huge algo update regarding the healthcare industry. And we're still dramatically up year over year in our organic traffic and visibility. But, every time one of those updates comes in, it's up to us to figure out how has this impacted our franchisees' microsites? How can we optimize? What are the things we need to do to make it better? So we try to take that off the franchisees' plate, but I try to focus with them on making sure you're getting Google reviews, telling a good story online. Focus on those two good things, and then we'll take care of the rest for you behind the scenes. So that's something we like to do with our franchisees is we have a centralized SEO vendor. I've seen in the past, franchisees are left to their own devices with SEO, and then you end up with 40 vendors in the picture and 40 different strategies. And so you're presenting yourself as, a bunch of boats rowing in a whole bunch of different directions. What we've done by centralizing it with the microsite structure, bringing in a central SEO partner, is we're now one big network, one big steamship, all going in the same direction. And that really is important. You can really confuse Google pretty quickly with a bunch of differing strategies, different microsite structures, URL structures, all that craziness. So it's been really important for us to take that hard part off the franchisee's plate, enable them to do what they do well, which is tell great stories and have people tell great stories about them. And then we handle the rest.
Yeah, I've seen some horror stories of not only if you have the websites, built incorrectly and then Google gets confused, but then people putting paid media behind it.
Right.
You're just literally
Yeah.
adding, like, wasting, like, burning money.
Yeah. We had
Not only is it set up incorrectly, but you're putting money to send it
putting
to.
money behind it. Yeah. And if your SEO is not done well, then you're stuck paying for positioning with PPC because you're never going to rank organically. So you're always going to be stuck in this environment where you've got to put, even behind branded terms, you've got to spend money. And so it's really important that we do, kind of what I call dominate the search. So Google's a business just like everything else. What do you see when you Google anything these days? Whole bunch of paid stuff at the top above the fold. You got to scroll to even see organic now, then you see the map listing. So our goal is to get FirstLight showing up in paid, the map, and the organic listings and just see us there multiple times, do everything well, not one thing great. And so
Yeah.
I think that's really important. I came here, we at least had a centralized site. We didn't have these one-off sites. In my past life at Service Master on a couple of our brands, we had, in one case, we had about 100 different sites that had been built. So franchisees building servicemasterbyxyz.com. And so our digital reputation was all over the place. And so that's one of the biggest things that can really hurt you is you're telling Google, hey, I'm not this one big network with a bunch of different local businesses attached to it. I am 500 different individual, unique local businesses. So backlink profiles, domain authority, the content that you're putting on the national site, it all gets, just completely diluted. And you're competing against yourself, not only in paid, but in organic and your listings and all of that. So it's really important to have that really good, cohesive national SEO structure that then can trickle down to the franchisees and they can benefit off of it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole power of franchising is the network
Right.
effect and, like you said, rowing in one direction together and not against each other.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And one quote that I love that kind of stuck with me too in terms of getting franchisees engaged and like rowing in that same direction in terms of the content piece that you mentioned of SEO is explaining the why, not
Yeah.
just the how, so they can
Yep.
connect that and be like, okay, like I need to tell great stories.
Yep.
People connect emotionally, especially in this industry. I mean, I can
Yep.
imagine that myself as a consumer and having parents, like I haven't lived through this yet, but when at some point I will, how much more I'll connect to this type of thing and a great story will capture me and draw me in.
That's right.
So how do you
Yes.
guys work that kind of brand storytelling angle? Like what are the key pieces you use?
Sure. So when you look at our space across the board in home care, it's got what we call the sea of sameness. It's a lot of people saying the same things the same way, talking about their services, talking about how they want to help you take care of mom and dad, really talking about it. And, a lot of writing things for Google, so to speak, writing for algorithms rather than looking at, somebody going through this experience. It's incredibly overwhelming. A lot of the times, one of the biggest things we have to approach is there's not much category awareness of home care in general, not just individual brands, but the awareness of the category of home care. So we do a lot on our site of walking you through what is personal care, what's companion care, what is skilled care that's a little different, what is respite care, what are all these things. That's important, but folks don't want to sit there and read a laundry list of what all this is. So what we've tried to do is really show, not tell. So again, we talk about the how versus the why. The how is what this stuff is and what we're actually doing in the house, but the why you do it is so important. So if you look at any of our service pages, at the bottom, we have these great little storytelling vignettes. My favorite one is it's an elderly woman sitting in her chair, smiling, and she looks great. She's got her hair done, ready for the day. And it's got these little hot spots that you can click on all over it. And, one is we took her to her hair and nail appointment. We made sure she had her prescriptions picked up. We adjusted her oxygen mask to make sure that it was on correctly. But what do those three things do? It's the fourth bullet point. That is, she looks and feels her best for her lunch date with her friends. That's what we do.
Mhm.
What we do, quote unquote, is all of the things, but what we actually provide is allowing people to live independently, live their best life as long as we possibly can. And so that's why our slogan and our mantra is to help people have their best day every day, because what your best day looks like on any given day is going to change. Some days your best day is just getting out and being able to go on a walk. Other days your best day is actually being able to go out and go get your friends, go get, drinks with the gals, go to bingo, go do that stuff. And so we really try to focus on what can we do for that client to give them their best day every day, but not just the client. You alluded to earlier, you going through a situation like that with your parents, you're worried about your mom and dad. You want to make sure that mom and dad are okay. So how can we also give peace of mind to that family that their family member is taken care of? Because oftentimes the folks that reach out to us for help are not actually the client themselves. It's the
Yeah.
client member, spouse, child, something like that. And so that's one of the most important relationships we have is they're entrusting us with the care of their loved one. And it's our job to make sure that they have complete trust in we're going to take care of them. We're going to make sure that they've got a caregiver that matches up well with them, that they're going to get along with and build that friendship with almost. So it's really important that we, the entire family, in addition to the client, feels that love, that support, that we are going to do our utmost to make sure that they have their best day every single day. So the long-winded answer to your question is really, again, it's about showing, not telling, because you can put all these great things on a website, even the images themselves, but if you don't live it every day, it doesn't really, work. So our franchisees and the caregivers that work for them do an amazing job every single day of living our vision and our mission and our values. And I'm just really proud of that because, again, what I said earlier, it's a story that tells itself at that point.
Yeah. So how do you guys handle video then? Like that example of you were
Sure.
given of the video on the service line page, is that your marketing team helping do it? Does Z's
Sure.
capture it? How do you guys do
So
it?
we've got a lot of both. So there's a place for franchisees to do their own local videos and upload them to the site. If you go to our homepage, you'll see the B-roll that we've got that shows right on the homepage, and you get there what a caregiver does every day. So really showing there. We do that, but we did at our conference this year. We brought a production team in, and we had all the franchisees had the ability to sit down with that production team and do little mini interviews. So 30-second to a minute long spots of like why home care, why First Light, what makes you unique, and they get to tell their individual stories. So they use those on a lot of their landing pages, on their microsites. You can go there and you can not only see what they do, but you can hear from the owner their passion that they have for this space. So we like to provide opportunities for them to do their own storytelling, but not say, hey, go out and find yourself a production team, go do all of that. Some of them do anyway, but we like to provide opportunities for them to get that multimedia content and not have to pay for it. That's what we look at in the national ad fund that our franchisees participate in. We look at everything we do with that should be something that services the franchisees and gives them an opportunity to do something collectively that they wouldn't be able to do individually, like pay for a large production studio to come in and get high quality video to stitch in with B-roll and all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah. And so do you guys do video advertising right now as well then?
We do. We do some video, and we don't do it heavily today, but it is something that's very important in our long-term growth strategy. One of the biggest things, like again, right now we're still in the airport phase a little bit with some of our stuff, so to speak. Some of that is airplane, but we were trying to, start to dip our toe in that water. Again, going back to conference last year, providing the opportunity for franchisees to get video recorded in a high quality way so that they can use it for video advertising was super important. So again, that visual storytelling continues to be a big part of our strategy moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just talking to Marcy Kleinsasser. She was on the podcast
Okay.
from Franchise Concepts a few weeks ago. And we were talking about
Sure.
doing video at her customer or at her conference and asking about like, what do people need to be aware of going into it? And I just ask about that too, because I think it is important that what you're looking for is the outcome of the video when you capture
Sure.
everything. Like, if you're gonna do advertising, you should probably have some, 8-second or 15-second spots that you could
Right.
easily repurpose. And so make sure that you're crafting short questions, short answers that
Right.
fit in 15 seconds and just
Yep.
know what the, end result might be.
That's right. So we led into the conference with the franchisees. Here's the questions that we're going to ask. Be thinking about these. Be thinking about your quick, short answer. If you're, in and doing your elevator speech, how can you do that, on video? That's essentially what we're looking for here, so that we can give these to people. They can be quick hitters that you can use in email. You could even take this video and say, when you send out a welcome email to a new client, you can use it to introduce yourself to that client and why First Light. If you're using it in advertising, there's snippets we can use there. So we really tried to make sure that franchisees understood the intent of the video so that their answers to those questions would be catered to the different formats that we might want to use it in. So that was really important to make sure, again, because some of them, what's amazing is they could talk for an hour about why this is so important to them. We're like, hey, we don't have an hour and neither
Yeah.
does are watching this. So you got to make sure that you're able to get across that emotional pull that you have and why you're unique and special in that 15, 38-second, snippets that we've got available.
Yeah. Awesome. So what else is working for you guys right now on the digital marketing front?
Sure. So with digital specifically, one of the things we're really working on is making sure that we are thinking about, you know, the owner in their day-to-day life. So again, I mentioned earlier, they're not marketers. And so we're working on being a little more prescriptive with things. So by the time this podcast comes out, we'll have announced it to the network, but we're working on something we call First Path. And that is across our organization. It's really the FirstLight model. And when I got here, you looked at what First Path was in marketing is it was a budget spreadsheet. And that doesn't help you very much. And so what we're looking at is owners in different tiers. So where they are in their growth, whether they're a new owner, whether they're growing, whether they're established, or whether they are, you know, knocking it out of the park. They've been in business for 10 years. How they're going to market both online and offline is going to be very different. And the
Yeah.
capabilities that they have, depending on where they are in their growth, is going to be different just purely from a budget standpoint. So a one size fits all budget spreadsheet is not how we want to build things. So what we've done is we've looked at tactically, here are the things that you may want to be thinking about in this stage of your growth. Here are the things that are going to help you based on what your priorities are. And then we also, define those, link out to one sheeters, provide who the vendor may be or the resource that you might want, give them the 30,000 foot view of what this is, what stage of the buyer consumer journey it falls into. And then we also talk extensively at the end of this document about reporting and how you can effectively track the performance of this at the local level to make sure that you're getting maximum ROI, but also making sure they understand what they should be tracking. So, if you're running a YouTube pre-roll campaign, don't expect that to drive you 80 leads in a month, but expect that to get you in front of other folks. And then you should expect to see some lift in some of your other channels. Maybe you're seeing a lift in your organic lead forms or your PPC is performing better. And so we're really talking about how you should expect to track and then giving them here's how you do it effectively in your CRM to make sure that at the end of the month, you're not just looking at your cost per lead, you're looking at your cost per converted lead. As a marketer, cost per lead is my least favorite metric on the planet because I always tell my franchisees the joke is, hey, if you want to judge me by cost per lead, I'll drive you a million leads. None of them will convert. And none of them will even be in market, but it'll be a million leads and it'll
Yeah.
look great on paper. So our goal is to get beyond just thinking about cost per lead and thinking about cost per quality lead or cost per converted lead. And so when we think about digital marketing, again, I say being more prescriptive. We're really focused on helping them build an effective local marketing strategy rather than just saying, here's our vendors and here's our tactics, go. So that's something we've been working really hard on for the last couple of months and that we're starting to roll out to the group. Again, when I think about airport type things, that's an airport type structure. We've got to make sure that they know what to do, where to do it, who to do it with, why they should do it, and then how to make sure that it's working. If we can have them answer those 5 questions, then we're doing something good. And so that's something that I've realized here has been something that's been desperately needed. So again, when you're looking at First Path in the past and seeing it as, all right, here's a budget spreadsheet with a bunch of line items on it, and you just plug in numbers. That's not teaching them how to market effectively. That's teaching them how to throw dollars at things that may or may not be working. So
Yeah.
that's biggest focus moving forward is helping them invest their local dollars effectively so that they're getting maximum return in terms of driving leads or building more awareness or whatever the goal for them may be at their stage of their particular growth. And I think that growth stage is the most important part of it because what works or what's important for a franchisee who is 2 months old is very different than a
Yeah.
franchisee who's 12 years and 2 months old. So making sure that we're thinking about those different growth phases and being as prescriptive as we can be with what they should be focused on there.
Yeah, that sounds like an awesome initiative. So if you're, are you in the middle of rolling that out right now? Like, what does your
We are.
communication and
We're
launch plan look like?
we're excited to sneak preview for some of our franchisees. They'll hear about this at conference this year. It'll be something that we're rolling out in depth there. The reason we wait to do things like that at conference is it's a way for us to get in front of them in person and talk through it, answer questions in real time rather than doing it on a town hall, webinar, or sending it out in the newsletter. We can do it at conference. We can really talk about the why we're doing something and make sure they understand the full how to take advantage of it process. And this really started from, we're an organization that's really founded in research. We just finished another round of brand research. And what this told us is that our local marketing efforts are where we're going to be able to move the needle the most so that we can then make sure our national marketing efforts are focused on growing the brand, not driving leads for the franchisees. Because if you're buying a franchise business, you're buying into an established brand. And if our national ad fund is spending a good portion of its budget on lead gen efforts, then that's money that's not being spent to grow the brand, create more exposure. And so we're really focused on, based off this research, making sure that local and national are working together and kind of being, the different frames of the house. So, rather than putting all of our, frames on one side and, having the roof tip over because there's nothing on this side, we're really working on national and local, aka brand and lead gen working well together. And so it's rolling out at conference. Any of our franchisees that are listening to this, get excited. I might be spoiling something for you, but we're really excited about having these plans in place to help you, execute more effectively at the local level.
That's awesome. And yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the national and local, combination because I know you have a ton of experience in both of those realms. And so I'm curious a little bit more about how you think about that. And especially on the brand awareness side, in terms
Sure.
of like, how do you bridge those two things when you need both?
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's so funny. It's like you can't buy anything if you're not aware of it. So,
Right.
like, brand awareness is direct revenue too. It is
Sure.
direct lead gen. It's just not,
Yep.
they're two different type of initiatives and campaigns that you have going. So I think
Exactly.
specifically I'm wondering about when you're building those two different initiatives, how do you think about bridging data and silos and, pushing people through the funnel
Sure.
with those two different things?
Sure. So really one of the biggest things for us is really starting to think about the funnel from a level higher up than I'm used to. So I mentioned earlier, category awareness of the home care space, the in-home care or in-facility care that you can get private is low. So we're starting a little level beyond, just, hey, who is First Light Home Care? It's what is home care, and then down into so being that trusted resource from the top down of what is home care and how does it work and how can I pay for it or what services does it cover? Being that level of brand awareness is new. It's not something I'm used to. So we're really focused on category awareness, then down into the brand of First Light, who we are and why we are different. And so when we look at the funnel, we look at the national level and the brand building level should happen on that category and who is First Light level. And then all right, how do I pay for services? Who offers them in my market, that type of stuff. That's where we want the franchisees to come in. So ideally, long term, we're moving to a model where we're focused on driving awareness of First Light and of home care. And then franchisees are focused on making sure that when somebody is ready to move forward, because this isn't like buying a pair of shoes. You don't just wake up one morning and decide I'm going to go out and get home care today. Doesn't happen. If it does, First Light's who you want to go to. Anyone's plug there. If you wake up this morning and decide home care is it's today and today's the day. But oftentimes it's a long journey. One of our franchisees told me the other day that they just converted a lead they originally got in touch with 19 months ago. So oftentimes it is that long cycle. We are focused on being there on every step of the journey and really trying to get out of that last touch attribution methodology. So, assigning all of the value to paid search when somebody saw, again, through their 19 months, for example,
Yeah.
you went to our website, saw us on a display ad that followed them around for a couple weeks, saw us on social, saw a great webinar that we put on, something like that, and had all these different touch points. We're really focused on moving to a model long term where we can look at all the things we're doing and how collectively they are improving lead gen at the local level and how the national ad fund and the local marketing campaigns can contribute to that journey along the way and make sure that we're doing it in a way where we're not stepping on toes, to what we talked about earlier, a bunch of different boats rowing in a different direction. That's where the first path strategy, all of that comes in, making sure that we're all rowing in the same direction. And we're thinking about this as a holistic consumer journey, not looking at each touch point as that's a potential new person. It's probably the same person hitting multiple times in some cases. And we need to get to a spot where we're evaluating things in that way.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's great. So only just a few more questions left for you before we wrap it up. The first one is there any questions you wish I would have asked that I did?
Great question. I think what makes First Light unique is something that I'm very passionate about. Again, I mentioned the sea of sameness. We have a CEO who franchisees pick up the phone and call. We have a marketing leader who franchisees pick up the phone and call. That is the approach we're taking. And so the way that we like to say it is most of our leadership team has either been a home care owner, has owned a home care franchise, or has been a franchise owner, or has been in franchising. So we like to say that, from a home office standpoint, we lead with a franchisor's head, with a franchisee's heart, because we've all been in that space. And so we understand the unique struggles that they're going through. So I think we looked at it. We have collectively, as a leadership team, the most home care and franchising experience in this space as a collective home care ownership group. And the way that we, like to think about things with home office franchisees, team members down to clients is, I like to think that we do everything as franchisee first at the home office level. Because if we are focused on our franchisees, so from a marketing perspective, first path, building that strategic framework, there we go, strategic framework out, putting the tools in place, bringing the partners to the table and all of that for them so that it feels not so overwhelming and like they have a roadmap for where they need to go. Again, that's why we're really focused on that right now. Then the franchisee then is not worried about what's corporate doing, what's happening here, because they know that we're thinking about them first. That then frees them up to be caregiver first, or their team members first. So they can spend their time focusing on running a great company for their caregivers that their caregivers want to be part of, want to stick around at, and love going to work at every day. And if our caregivers love going to work every day and want to stick around at that company, then they're focused on taking care of their clients every single day. They're not worried about, am I going to be able to get to work tomorrow? Am I going to be able to put food on the table? All of those big questions that everybody at every level is asking. So I look at it as, what makes us unique is we are truly focused on our franchisees, but by being franchisee first, we are also then internally a franchisee first, client first, caregiver first organization. So it really trickles all the way down. And that approach is, I think, to me, again, having been in franchising and seen other brands, that is really unique and really special. And again, I look at it with my team as, it's as simple as, listen, guys, we don't have jobs if our franchisees aren't succeeding. So our main job every single day is to help our franchisees be successful. Sometimes that's giving them some tough love. Sometimes that's bending over backwards to help them finish something. Sometimes that's just a note saying, "Hey, I saw what you guys have done this month, and it's awesome." So we had a franchisee who was really focused on their Google reviews, and they went from one Google review to 25 five-star Google reviews in a month just by putting in some of the things and techniques that we put in place. And they saw themselves shoot up the rankings, and I saw it. And so it's just a note from me saying, I saw what you guys did, and that's awesome. And I'm so happy to see this positive momentum. So it's really about making sure we're just thinking about them on a day-to-day basis in every interaction or every strategy or everything that we do. So I'm really proud of that as an organization and as a leadership team.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I do have to say, I don't hear too many franchise marketing teams that encourage the please contact me type approach. Most people are kind of like, no, like, I don't want a million
Yes.
phone calls. So,
Yeah, my phone, we do have a marketing support inbox that goes to my entire team, but there are sure a lot of franchisees that love to just email Taylor at firstlighthomecare.com directly. And so I get those, and my cell phone is out there. They call me there. And yeah, I'm really proud of being able to have that level of interaction with our franchisees. Again, I've been parts of franchise organizations before where the only franchisees I ever heard from the head of marketing was just the ones on the marketing committee or things like that. I'm really focused on being franchise facing for the great, the good, the bad, the ugly, and hearing it all. Because if I'm not, then we're not moving in a better direction.
yeah. Yeah. And I love hearing that so many home office team members have had that franchisees experience too. I know I was talking to Roger Martin from Thrive More Brands, and they were launching Beam Light Sauna as a new concept. And he was like, I have to be an owner, like, and
Yep.
not just like a corporate, I'm running a corporate store. He was like, no,
Yep.
I'm personally investing money and experiencing this because that's the only way I can best service the network.
You have to see it. You have to feel it. And so when as a home office employee, when I get that frustrated email from the franchisee, you don't take it as like, why are they so upset? You're like, I understand because I've been there and I've lived it. Or, I can put myself in their shoes about they're putting their own, livelihoods and things on the line here. And so it's important that we give them that support. And so it's so important to be able to walk in their shoes and understand in all those interactions, not just, hey, this is going to be great for you, but how does it actually feel? Is it really going to work on the local level? what can we do better? All of those types of interactions.
Yeah, I love that. And last question I have for you that I ask all my guests is what does
Sure.
being a great marketing leader mean to you?
What is a great servant leadership? I think that is I hope that my team feels and I know several of them have mentioned it to me that I love rolling up my sleeves and getting in the weeds. Again, franchisees that reach out to me directly, I am in the weeds with my team on a day to day basis. I don't ask them to do anything that I wouldn't do. And it's very important to me that they know that I've got their back because they always have mine. And that's well beyond just work, just personally, that I am there for them. And so I think when I think about leadership, what it looks like to me is, again, being that servant leader. And again, I joke about the org chart being flipped at the beginning. I truly look at it as it is not this person and then there's these little blocks underneath it. It's flipped. My job is to make sure that they can be as successful every day because then our franchisees can be as successful as they can be every day. So I think being a marketing leader means, of course, understanding the space, understanding all of the great things that we need to know, being an expert in digital marketing or whatever that may be as a leader. But the most important quality for a leader is your team and having a great team around you. And so I really look at it as I hope in any given team meeting that I'm the dumbest one in the room. That is my hope, is to have a team where I am learning from them every single day. And then I am blocking and tackling for them to help them be as great as they can possibly be. So it means understanding the space. It means helping your franchisees. It means all those other things. But I think really being a good leader that, you don't have to tell people you're a leader. Your team just naturally wants to jump in and do these things because they're bought in on where we're going as an organization because they know that you're bought in on them.
Yeah, I love that. And not only do they jump in and are brought in, but they're rowing in the same direction already. So,
That's right. That's right. It's crucial. So I again, I think I love the things where some of my favorite times are I'm in Memphis, Tennessee. Our home office is in Cincinnati. We'll get together in Cincinnati in person regularly. And we have, these great all day whiteboarding sessions and all this, all that good stuff that you want. But some of my favorite times are, there's a great brewery across the street from our office, walking across the street with a group of us and just sitting there and hearing about, my social media lead, her daughter just got in the University of Georgia out of state. And that's, just so exciting. And hearing her talk about her daughter's volleyball team or, hearing another member of my team talk about her dog just got his annual checkup and he's like a 7-year-old dog and he's got the heart and lungs of a puppy and he's doing great. I love hearing those things because we're then all truly bought in on each other. And I mean, my team knows my kids, they see my kids on camera all the time. I'm surprised that no one's walked in during this or
I
has
said
come in
hi.
during this. I think, opening up and letting them know who we all are personally, I think is really important.
You're lucky to have a brewery across the street.
It's
We're
pretty
all
great.
so
It's
lucky.
it's pretty great. My wife does I like my B and my B, my bourbon and my beer. That's what I go to, and this place is a brewery, and they also have started doing, whiskey and bourbon too, so it's like my heaven is
Ooh,
they have handmade pizzas in there too. I mean, where can you go wrong with pizzas and
yes. You're
stuff?
speaking my
So,
language. I'm a whiskey person.
there you go. Love
Yeah.
it. Love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kimbrough, so much for coming on. It was great to hear
Sure.
your story.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been great. I love any chance I get to talk about First Light, talk about our franchisees. Again, it's truly an honor for me to be in the role that I'm in. So any chance I get to shine a spotlight on our franchisees and what they do every day is well worth it.
Awesome. Well, good luck with the conference, and we'll have to speak again soon.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Looking forward to it.